Hello and welcome to my patch notes rundown for the 4th of October. This week's update introduces a lot of minor changes and additions, including the first batch of updates to the Croesus Front. Unfortunately, there's not much to discuss, but a lot worth noting. Without further ado, let's get right into it. A new button has been added to the bank interface, which when turned on will prevent automatic tab switching when depositing items already within the respective tab. Adjusted the size of click boxes throughout the Anachronia agility course. This was a surprising update since I've always thought the click boxes at the course were really well done. Maybe this is somewhat related to the recent click box issues that came alongside the Glacor Front, but a noticeable change was the thickness of the vine click boxes. The name of the pet now appears in the examined text for the familiar they're overriding. This allows players to easily identify the name of the pet override. Items in the loot window can now be examined. Master skill capes can now be purchased from Ellen in the Max Guild. Added a consume all option to the Wicked Hood teleport tokens. The names of runecrafting altars and mysterious runes now reflect their associated runes. Extra fine sand can now be blessed at all Saradomin altars, the only notable location being your player-owned house. Extra fine sand can now also be left-clicked while next to a Saradomin altar to bless it. The skill-based obstacles in the Abyss now have a shorter animation. Players can no longer fail the skill-based obstacles in the Abyss. Instead, there's now a level 30 requirement in the respective skills to go through the obstacles. Valador shields now have a check charges option, which also includes an info box. The kharid-et pylon and the Roar of Osiris buffs now display the time remaining on its buff icon while active. Moving forward to the Croesus Front patch notes. The Scripture of Bic has now been added to the Croesus boss collection log. If you received one as a drop prior to this update, it will unfortunately not count for the log. Updated the buy limit for the new fungal materials introduced with the Croesus Front. Unique drops at Croesus are now broadcasted to the world and friends. Added the new lore books as a requirement for the Master Quest Cape. Players are now able to use Blade Dive while having Tavia's fishing rod equipped. Reduce the number of players who are able to join a public Croesus encounter to 18. Targa's Core Hammer and Sana's Fire Torch are now able to roll for their respective arrow tips when skilling inside the Croesus boss fight. Sana's Fire Torch is now able to roll for arrow tips when woodcutting bloodwood trees. Dyed Grasping Rune Pouches now correctly revert to tradable versions when all runes are removed from them. Fix an issue where Dyed Grasping Rune Pouches were not triggering the special effect. Fungal soups are now both tradable and available on the Grand Exchange. Most of these resources are poor XP per hour to gather, and depending on the skilling plot, it can take up to 30 minutes to harvest enough for just one soup. This change doesn't really affect the usability of this item, especially considering the current meta of stalling during the Croesus boss fight. This soup doesn't benefit the player at all. They need to make the effect last longer or reduce the number of enriched fungus it requires to make. Added Croesus to the final boss and insane final boss achievements. Players are no longer able to get stuck inside Croesus when the vulnerability timer ends. Cinderbane gloves and other poisons no longer work on Croesus. The Water Fiend familiar can no longer duplicate resources during the Croesus encounter. Finally, moving on to the Glacor Front and other patch notes. Updated the Gloves of Passage buff bar tooltip to show accurate information. Reaper points and Marks of War have been buffed for hard mode Arc Glacor. The Dark Shard of Length special attack will no longer be cleared when changing weapons. However, the special attack does not affect non-melee damage. Players can now switch to their two-handed weapons without losing their buff, allowing them to readily make use of Freedom Auto Attack, Cleave, ZGS Special, and the Pterosaur Maul. Players will no longer click through the interface used for clue scroll slider puzzles. The level 29 defense requirement has been removed from Ancient Curses. This means that level 1 defense pures, if any still exist, can now use curses. It is no longer possible to bypass the cooldown of a special attack by utilizing the essence of finality. I'm not going to detail how to replicate this bug even though it's been fixed, since it's a bug that can possibly return in the future. However, I will mention that this fix has caused it so if you stall an EOF special attack and switch out of that EOF, you can't release the originally stalled special attack. Instead, you just start auto-attacking. And that's it for this week's patch notes. Unfortunately, there were no changes to the point distribution at the Croesus encounter. I was hoping to see some adjustments within the week, since the best way to farm the boss isn't by killing it as fast as possible, it's by stalling the kill and farming the mechanics for points. Anyways, that's it from me. Thank you for watching and take care.